The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose any medical condition, replace the advice of a healthcare professional, or provide any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Copyright 2020 Fireteam Whiskey, LLC, all rights reserved. Welcome to the Warrior Wellness Podcast, a podcast for military members, veterans, and first responders focusing on fitness, health, nutrition, and biohacking. Our mission with this podcast is to introduce America's heroes to lifestyle habits and hacks that will help them live healthier, happier lives, and in turn, be fit enough to continue their support of their communities and country.
Welcome to the Warrior Wellness Podcast. I am your host, former Army Captain Stephanie Lincoln, and I am beyond belief excited. Gretchen Evans, and she is, I have chills. She is a former Command Sergeant Major, 27 years in the Army, and she is one of the most decorated female veterans in U.S. history. This woman is in the Veterans Hall of Fame. Boom. If you didn't just do a mic drop, listen to this. She is also on the Eco Challenge team that we're going to talk about. So she is a badass physical lady as well. And did I mention she got blown up in Afghanistan? She is completely deaf and has had multiple shrapnel wounds, PTSD, tons of shit that she has been through in her life. And this lady is one of the female members on this Eco Challenge team. And I can't even. I'm not worthy. Their team, called Team Unbroken, every person on their team, Team Unbroken, is made up of people with disabilities. Team Unbroken is made up of Gretchen Evans, a disabled Army veteran, wounded by shrapnel in combat and fully deaf; Keith Mitchell Knoop, who was wounded by an improvised explosive device, IED, in Iraq; Dr. Ann Bailey, the type 1 diabetic who works for the VA; and Hal Riley, who had a severe back injury from a skiing accident. So talk about a badass team proving that not only can you accomplish anything, guess what? If you have a disability, you can accomplish anything too. So if you're listening out there, if this doesn't inspire you to get off your butt and do something that challenges you and move your body, then I don't know what will, because this is probably going to be our most motivational, inspiring Warrior Wellness podcast ever. I cannot wait for you to hear this interview. They are going to be on Amazon Prime Video starting August 14th, which is tomorrow as of the date of this recording. I know you'll hear this a little bit later on. Go to Amazon Prime Video. You need to watch The World's Toughest Race and check out how this team does, despite their, quote unquote disabilities, that they will do this thing in Fiji, a 400-mile race. Watch their experiences, be inspired, and get out there and move your body. So listen to this. Gretchen, thank you again just so much for making time to do this. I'm truly honored. As a female Army veteran myself, just your prowess and your achievements and your accomplishments in the military, helping pave the way for women like me going forward. So that's inspiring to me in itself. But the fact that you competed in Eco Challenge is just mind-blowing to me too. And then on top of that, being on an all-disabled team in the Eco Challenge. So why was it so important for you to get an all-disabled team into the Eco Challenge?
That's a really good question, Stephanie. It was important to me to get an all-disabled team into the Eco Challenge because I'm around the veteran population a lot, and I kept hearing stories from other veterans that sometimes doors would be slammed on them because of their disabilities. And sometimes they were judged about their disability. Sometimes they were not given an opportunity because of their disability. And so I thought to myself, how do we get the word out that a disability shouldn't be a disqualifier? That those of us who have disabilities, have learned to mitigate, in lots of cases, our symptoms and move around the disabilities that we have. Like, I've been deaf for 10 years, and if you spend a lot of time with me, you will realize it. But people who meet me from the very beginning don't even realize I'm deaf until they walk behind me and try to call my name or something. So when I first applied to Eco Challenge, and I got together my team, which everybody had a disability, and it was a little rocky there in the beginning. They said no because they're like everybody else, and rightfully so. They were a little bit intimidated by our injuries, and mostly my deafness, because I wouldn't always have been able to look at people in the face. I'd be up on a cliff or in the jungle at night, and they were concerned about not only my safety but other people's safety and liability of the race itself. They didn't want anybody to get hurt. And so it took a little convincing, but my whole point was to get them to open the door. I just wanted them to open the door, because I knew once I got the door open, it would be open for everybody that has a disability. And that was my main reason to do that.
So on top of that, you had 2 women on your team, which most teams do not. They usually just have a single female. And personally, I used to be on an adventure racing team, and I was the only female myself. And most adventure racing teams have a hard time finding female competitors. So let's talk about the fact that not only did you have disabilities and limitations, but you were both female. You had 2 females on your team. So can you talk about the importance of females and being on these kinds of teams, these competitive venture racing, physical, kind of strenuous things that females tend to not be a part of?
Yeah, so having 2 females on the team, we're certainly in the minority of the big racing teams. And, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to think why. It's a very physical race. It takes a lot of physical strength. But having been in the military for 27 years and been a marathon runner and been in combat, that I think that, mental and emotional strength is just as important as physical strength. And so, especially in adventure racing, where a lot of decisions that are made are not based on how strong you are, but how smart you are and how you problem solve. And so and I did it for a reason. I put 2 people on the team again to demonstrate that, we can bring as much to the table as anybody else. I might not be able to pick up a 100-pound log and move it from point A to point B, but I can certainly contribute in other ways. My experience, my wisdom, and that. So Dr. Ann Bailey is a clinician at the Veterans Administration, and she's a triathlon athlete, and so she brought a lot to the table. And the team felt like it was, that we didn't even really think about having 2 females and 2 males. Once we kind of got going, it was like we were just a team. We moved as a wheel. We moved as a team. And but I think that we got a lot of looks about that decision, and we don't regret it in the least. The guys said, man, we certainly pulled our fair share.
Can you talk about how these accomplishments, yourself with your military history and your accomplishments, and then also competing in Eco Challenge and Anne as well, how it can be inspiring to other women or girls out there who may also have medical conditions or disabilities and that are considered limitations?
Yes, that was part of our hope, was that, sometimes you have to see it to believe it. When you sit down in front of the TV and you see a team like Team Unbroken, and they talk about our disabilities, and people see us competing in the world's toughest race, that I'm hoping that young people, both male and female, are sitting in front of the TV thinking, well, that could be me. I hope there's a there's a kid there with diabetes, like Anne, that says, okay, my diabetes doesn't have to limit me. I hope there are hearing impaired kids out there who are saying, okay, just because I can't hear doesn't eliminate me, doesn't disqualify me from doing the things I want to do in life. And so we hope that gave them some hope and some inspiration. And this new generation that's coming up, and also for even people my age, to say, okay, so it's out there. I'm not saying it doesn't take a lot of hard work, because it does, and it takes some grit and it takes some gumption. But don't let your disability be your excuse not to try. Take that off the plate and say, okay, if you really want to do that, don't let that be the war stopper in making your decision.
I love that. And you are literally, to me, Superwoman. You've been shot at, you've been blown up, you've had TBI, total hearing loss, as well as PTSD. You were forced to retire after these last injuries from the military, and you are open about talking about how you were fighting depression, and you were really in a funk after you were medically retired, and then you found no barriers. So can you talk a little bit about that process that you went through?
Yeah, so you explained the story really well. I was at the peak of my career. I was a command sergeant major, at the highest enlisted rank in the military, and things were looking great and good. I loved my job. I loved being with my troops. And then one day I went from hero to zero, and I didn't have a plan B, because the thought of retirement had never occurred to me. I was 46 years old and planned on serving until I was age 60, and they kicked me out. So when I got injured, it was such a kick in the gut. I just didn't know what to do. I spent my whole adult life. I went in at 19. I was injured at 46. So my whole really adult life was in the military. So I didn't have a lot of experience in the civilian world as an adult. And just a regular transition is difficult, but if you transition on top of injuries, it even makes it more difficult to do that, because you're dealing with lots of issues out there. And so I went into a pretty deep funk. I'm not proud to say this, but it's true. I contemplated, not to be here anymore. I thought about it, and I had some survivor's guilt, and I wish, kind of like Lieutenant Dan on Forrest Gump, that I died on the battlefield. To me, that would have been an honorable way to go away. And I was disappointed for a while that it didn't happen. And then I kind of, bit by bit, and through No Barriers, a friend of mine recommended No Barriers, and I went, and they take warriors on expeditions, and they talk about life elements like vision and rope team and elevate and alchemy and all these kinds of things. And these things resonated with me. It wasn't the total silver bullet that brought me out of my depression, but it certainly put me on the path. And so I, kind of had a 180-degree turn and said, okay, you've been dealt a new hand, and it might not be 4 aces and a king, but it's 4 kings and an ace. It's still a good hand. And this is the hand you're going to have to play. And you're still a leader. And regardless of the fact that I'm deaf and that I have PTSD and a traumatic brain injury, I'm still Gretchen. I'm still that same person. They might have taken away some of my faculties, but my heart and my soul are still the same before my injuries. And it was that person in there that ultimately rose out into the top and decided, what do you like to do? And what I like to do is I like to help people.
Yeah, that's so inspiring, especially for what I do with Fire Team Whiskey and helping military members and veterans, get their fitness and health back. And a lot of people have those similar stories of having an injury or getting out of the military and feeling like the book has ended. I say that the book isn't ended, it's just the next chapter. And you can write that next chapter, but you have to be inspired and find that within yourself. And you wrote your next chapter, getting involved in this nonprofit, No Barriers, and racing for the Eco Challenge and creating this all disabled group. So you're such an inspiration for veterans out there who are struggling with their transition and hope for, that doesn't mean it's the end. Like you said, you have another hand you can still play with. It's not the end of the game.
Right. The mantra for no barriers is something that I apply in my life. I think everybody should have a personal mantra that they can reach down really deep when they need it and say something to themselves that kind of like snaps them out of it when you're getting almost ready to quit or to give up. And what barrier says is that which is within me is stronger than anything in my way. So I'm walking around with the tools and the grit and the gumption and the heart to confront anything that might be put in my way. And so I need not to fear what's out there, but I know that I have the capability to do whatever I need to do. And so does everybody else. So I'm not no unique, or I'm not special, I'm not anything of those things. I'm just a person walking around. And I think everybody walks around with that same, fire in them. And so sometimes it gets squelched because of things that happen to you, injuries or trauma or something like that. It gets squelched, and you got to find that light back inside of you. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to find some really helpful rope team friends. I always say, who you hang with, and to find some really positive people who believe not only in their dreams but your dreams, and then you guys can help each other.
Yes, I love that. And that's the number one risk factor for veterans and for suicide, is that lack of community and lack of support. And I love that the No Barriers program provides that support. Can you talk a little bit about what they provide to veterans?
Yes, so they, at no cost, provide expeditions for veterans. They usually take 7 or 8 veterans out on a 5 to 7 day hike. Fully, they provide you with everything, transportation, all your gear, everything's paid for. It doesn't cost the veteran anything. And then while you're on this hike, it's really the venue is the outdoors. There's something healing about being in the outdoors, and most military people like being in the outdoors. So they use the landscape as the place where the healing can take place. And then you hike all day, and then at the end of the day, you put up your tents, and we sit around the campfire and we share dinner, and then we start talking about things that have happened in our lives. We talk about the barriers that we've had to overcome in the past. And then we talk about the barriers that we're facing right now in our lives. And then we talk about the barriers that might be in our future, that might stop us from getting to where we want to get. And, usually you have your own answers inside of you, but when you start discussing them with other people who also are battling some of the same battles you are, there's insight, and there's empathy, and there's sympathy, and then there's encouragement. And before you know it, okay, by the 3rd or 4th night, you're not even talking about your injuries and barriers anymore. What you're talking about are your hopes and your dreams, that you're gotten past that. And that's the beauty. And I think that's where the magic really happens, is sitting around that campfire at night and sharing those stories with each other and saying, yeah, I've been there and I know how that feels. And maybe even offering some suggestions as well. Maybe this is a path that I took that you might want to try that was helpful for me. And then No Barriers also encourages every veteran during these hikes to make a challenge. And they say, within the next year, what is something that you really, really want to do? And it can be something as simple as, I want to get outside of my house every day. I mean, really, that simple. Or it can be something like, I want to go and compete in the world's toughest race. And you write out this challenge and you share it with the people that you're on the hike with, and with a coach alumni through No Barriers. And they kind of sort of offer a coaching and accountability partner. They check in with you every couple of months and say, hey, how are you doing working towards your challenge? And so they hold on to you. So it's not a one and done. It's not just a hike. It's not just 7 days out in the mountains. It's more than that. It's a program. And they also offer online classes that are helpful to veterans as they're navigating their transition back into civilian life.
I love that it pairs it up with a journey, because that really is what life is, right? It's a journey, and you're gonna stumble and you're gonna get lost, and you're gonna see this like in the eco challenge with you, this huge climb, and you don't think you can make it, but you make a plan, and you dig down deep, and you sludge your way to the top, and you get over that hump, and it sucks, but you do it, and that's what life is. And it's not just throwing in the towel and giving up and just sitting down. It's just expecting that that's a journey, and you're going to come across some obstacles, and it's going to be hard, but you can do this with a community.
Yeah, the beauty of it, doing it with a team or a community or whatever, is that, I don't know, you go on a solo hike and you climb a high mountain and you get up to the summit, it's almost anticlimactical. You're like, okay, you did that. You pat yourself on the back maybe. But you do it with a couple of people, and it's like a party up there. You know, you've all succeeded. It's so much more joyful to share that moment on the summit with others than just by yourself. And also, you know, it's so much easier to get to the summit of your life, whatever your summits are, education, a job, working on your family, whatever you want to consider your summit. It's not always a mountaintop. It can be anything. It's so much easier to navigate and to stay on the path when you have others walking with you. And it's also so much more beautiful when you share it with somebody else.
Wow. Gretchen, it has just been such an honor speaking with you. You were so inspiring. I am definitely going to be getting involved in the No Barriers Warriors program, and I hope everybody out there listening will definitely check out The World's Toughest Race on Amazon Prime Video, because I watched it and it is so touching and moving what the team Unbroken does out there. You have to see it. I'll include all the links in the show notes. Gretchen, thank you so much for joining us on the Warrior Wellness Podcast.
Well, thank you, Stephanie, for allowing the time to tell the story, and for your compassionate heart, and anything I can do for you and your organization, you know, reach out to me anytime. And for any veteran out there that's been thinking about doing this, man, just do it. Just do it. Just know that you can.
Well, hopefully, maybe I'll see you out there at the next one.
Yes, ma'am. I hope to see you out there. Thanks so much.
Thank you.